You're listening to the Hella Well with Danielle show, a podcast taking women of color on a journey exploring all things wellness and travel related. We're all about showing you how to put on your oxygen mask first and creating lasting self-care habits that will free you to travel the world and live the life you truly desire, and not one you have to fake loving. I'm your host, Danielle Washington. Now let's buckle up and start this journey. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Hella Well with Danielle podcast. I am your host, Danielle Washington, and I am talking today about one of the hottest topics. And if you are new, welcome. This podcast is all about helping women of color learn how to put on an oxygen mask first and take care of themselves. And it's a mix of travel and wellness. And, you know, I always say travel is my favorite form of therapy, to the point where I actually wrote a book called literally Travel is My Therapy, which you can buy on Amazon. And I wanted to talk today about one of the hottest topics in travel. But before we get there, I just want to go out there and just say, hey, did you get your V card? I got my V card. No, I'm not talking about being a virgin. I got my V card, as in my vaccination card. And that topic alone right now is, if you really want, it's the new political do not talk about topic. If you ever want to start an argument with someone, be like, hey, I think you should get vaccinated, or you shouldn't get vaccinated. But what's more kind of hot, especially in the travel industry right now, is the vaccination passport. And let's think about this, so say you got vaccinated. Congratulations if you did. If you didn't, it's all you. I don't have a way of saying anything. I have to deal with me. I don't tell people what to do, not to do. So this podcast right now is really it's really geared towards people who have been vaccinated, who want to travel. Because if you've been vaccinated, you're probably thinking, okay, I've been vaccinated. So you're probably wondering, is it safe to travel again? And is traveling going to go back to the norm? Or is this new norm that we need to learn about, that we need to consider traveling again? And if you want to think about it in the sense of 9/11. After 9/11 happened, there was a new norm for travel. And so people are kind of wondering, what's the deal? I'm now vaccinated. What can I do? Where can I go? What's going on? So in this podcast, I really want to talk about kind of the guidelines of what can you do as, a vaccinated person, and, all the ins and outs of this vaccination passport, which is what I really want to get into. The reality is summer is coming. We are literally days, weeks, something away from summer. And people are tired. People are tired of being in the house. I know I am. People are ready to travel and get out there and live their best life. And a lot of people think, okay, I'm now vaccinated. I can travel, but can I travel? Is it safe? And more destinations are actually opening up. The EU just announced that they're opening up more destinations to vaccinated, keyword, vaccinated Americans. So if you're not vaccinated, I'm just going to say it right now, there are a lot of destinations that are going to be like, nope, denied. You cannot get in. Sorry, not sorry. And on top of that, the CDC, bless their heart, has relaxed the travel restrictions in April. Because I'm going to read from some of this stuff, because I don't know if you've been following CDC's travel restrictions and their recommendations. That shit is hella confusing. Hella confusing, because I'm at one point they say one thing and then they're like, oh, turn around and say something else. So to not misquote them, I'm gonna read what they said. So in April, I think late April, the CDC updated the travel guidance for fully vaccinated people to reflect the latest evidence and science. I don't know why I had to quote that one. So if you're not watching me, by the way, if you're new to the podcast, we've now been doing live videos with the podcast. So you can now watch me, at the same time as hearing the information I'm giving you. So if I seem like I'm laughing because I'm air quoting, because I love to air quote. I don't know why, but I love to air quote. Anywho, the CDC now recommends that fully vaccinated people can travel at low risk to themselves. A person is considered fully vaccinated that's had 2 weeks after their last dose of their vaccine. So if you've had, the Johnson Johnson, which is the 1 dose one, it's 2 weeks after that. Or if you've had Moderna or Pfizer, it's 2 weeks after those. I actually had the Pfizer. And I will say, people had me really like freaking out about this. I was fine. Like literally, people were like, oh my God, the second shot, I was dead. I couldn't do anything. I was sick. I was this and that. I had all these headaches. It's been now at least 2 weeks since I had it, and I'm good. The only problem I had with the vaccination was the first vaccination. I didn't eat that whole day. I didn't drink the whole day. And I got my test around 1 o'clock. The line was mad ass long. And I had to drive hella far for it. But I got an appointment. I remember literally sitting there because you sit there for 15 minutes afterwards. And I'm like, excuse me, nurse. Are you supposed to feel like I'm like hella high? Because I feel like someone drugged my ass. She's like, did you eat or drink? I'm like, nope. She's like, we've heard about people having that issue. You should be fine. So like about after 40 minutes of getting the test or the shot, I was fine. The second shot, I had drank a lot. I ate before, so I felt like I was good. I only felt like a little bit drugged for a second, but like after like 10 minutes or so, fully fine. So I know people have different situations. I know some people are like against the vaccination. I get that. But anyway, I just went on a mad ass tangent, but we're going to go back to the conversation. So again, someone who is fully vaccinated is someone who's been their second dose was 2 weeks. So after 2 weeks of their second dose is when someone's considered fully vaccinated. And if you are fully vaccinated, according to the CDC, you now can travel within the United States without needing a COVID test or having to self-quarantine, which is bomb. Like, it's like, that's a lot. Sometimes, those tests, I think the COVID-19 test was worse than getting the shot, in my opinion. That thing going up your nose, I'm like, I think they're literally looking for Jesus up there. He's not there. Nor is Tupac, in case you're still looking for him too. But anyway, so okay, if you're fully vaccinated in the United States, you can travel without needing a COVID test or needing to post-travel self-quarantine. Internationally, this is where like the bomb things come in. If you are fully vaccinated, you don't need a COVID test before traveling, unless it is recommended by the international destination that you're going to. You also don't need to self-quarantine after returning to the United States unless it's required by your state or local jurisdiction. I don't know why I had problems with that word, jurisdiction. You still do need a COVID test before boarding a plane returning to the U.S. So everyone, whether you're vaccinated or not vaccinated, before returning to the U.S., you do need to get a COVID test and make sure that the test is obviously negative. And then you also still do need to do a COVID test 3 to 5 days after returning from international travel. So you still have to do the test, not on the front end, but on the back end, you have to do the COVID test. And the other thing was fully vaccinated people should continue to take COVID precautions while traveling internationally. Okay, so and that was like wear a mask, woo, woo, woo. And then May 13th happened, which was a couple days ago. And then the CDC came out saying fully vaccinated people no longer need to wear a mask or physically distance in any setting except when required by federal, state, local, or local businesses. I don't know about you, but I was like, F you, CDC, because I'm not buying that. I just don't trust that. I thought that was really crazy. And like even today, they were kind of coming out and trying to like backpedal to some degree and like, well, what we really meant, what we really meant to say is, and it's just a big asterisk. And a big asterisk on all that is another part of it that they talked about, fully vaccinated travelers are less likely to get or spread COVID-19. However, international travel poses additional risk, and even fully vaccinated travelers are at increased risk for getting and possibly spreading new COVID-19 variants. This is them basically covering their ass, which I ain't mad. Like legally, I would be saying this too. There needs to be a big asterisk behind all this stuff because you tell people, are fully vaccinated, you can go out free, nilly and willy, naked and free without any mask on. You can go hug and lick everyone in the world if you want to because you've been fully vaccinated. And so, of course, they were like, but let us tell you, we don't really recommend for you to travel right now. So even though they're saying fully vaccinated people can travel, and these are some, less restrictions, we're relaxing restrictions on people who are fully vaccinated, they're still saying, but we still don't think you should travel. And on top of that, you have the U.S. State Department. I forgot when they did this. I think it was April. It was either April or March, one of those 2 months. But April and March of this year, 2021, the U.S. State Department then put on like 115 countries. 115. That's a hell of countries. Imagine basically every country that you probably want to go to is on that list. So the U.S. State Department declared 115 countries as level 4, which is the highest level of like travel warnings. And so level 4 is the do not travel. And so they put 115 countries on the do not travel list due to the pandemic. That's countries like South Africa. That's countries like Cuba. I mean, there's so many different countries on there. It's just like, damn. Like, I was like, okay, well, can I go here? Dun-dun. Can I go here? Dun-dun. Did I go here? I'm like, you have taken away all the countries I want to go to. And let me be the first one to admit, allegedly, I don't always follow the U.S. State Department warnings. For many months, years, especially when good old 45 was in the office, there were all these warnings about don't travel to Cuba because, the embassy people had this weird ear thing and it's dangerous and woo, woo, woo. And Cuba is one of the safest places I've ever been to in my entire life. Like literally one of the safest places I've ever traveled to. I feel safe traveling as a woman. I feel safe traveling as a woman of color. I feel safe traveling as a woman of color alone. I feel safe traveling in a large group of women of color because I brought women of color there. So, I always say take it with a grain of salt. However, this is a different grain of salt because this is due to the pandemic. And so they're saying because of these countries having such high, COVID, positive situations like India, which is, it breaks my heart to see what's going on in India because it's just sad. So keep it in mind. So, on top of you having, these, restrictions of 115 countries, the CDC is then saying, at the same time saying, but you can travel and we're making it easier for you, but we don't recommend you traveling. And so you can make the decision, but we've given you the warnings. But no matter which way you go, if you're going to travel, especially internationally, you need to either prove that you are free of COVID by taking a COVID test, or you need to be fully vaccinated. And so that's like, game, zero is that you need to have proof. And thus leads to today's topic, which is the vaccination passport, which is just as crazy of a topic and heated as a topic as, the vaccination. And it is interesting. It's also on the political side. I've been doing my research to learn more about this, and I was listening to some people, and I was like, this woman don't sound like she needs to be on Fox News. She's like, it's our rights. I was like, be quiet, Becky. So I'm going to break it down, my version. I'm not saying I know everything. I 100% encourage you and recommend that you do your own research, but this is based on the research I've done, my personal opinion, and I ain't an expert. I'm just a random girl who likes to travel, who wants y'all to be safe and learn more. Learn more before you do anything. So, all right. That being said, is the vaccination passport really your ticket to international travel? Something to think about. What is the vaccination passport? Let's get started with even that part. So a vaccination passport is basically when you get vaccinated, you get this little white piece of paper card that tells you, this is your name. It has the dates you got your vaccination, and it is your like golden ticket to travel right now. But that being said, that little white piece of paper that you get, I know people who have accidentally washed it and gone. I mean, that's ticket to travel and you just literally washed it and it's damaged. And the person was like, well, I didn't get it through, like, I got mine through Kaiser. So people were like, I got mine at a Safeway or some other grocery store. Like, how am I going to figure out the record who do I go to figure out to get a replacement? And that's a whole other ballgame. I didn't even look into that. So, the white piece of paper can get easily lost. It can be damaged. It could be stolen. And so a lot of people were thinking the vaccination passport, which is a digital verification that shows proof of vaccination and COVID status. And basically the goal behind this is to, make this internationally recognized in a way to move away from the paper vaccination card. The pros about it is it is digitalized. So it's usually these vaccination passports are on an app, and there's several apps. There's like hell of these apps. And so we'll get into later, like kind of breaking down all the different apps, but like there's hella apps, but it's an app on your phone, that some of them you can get on a computer. So there is some kind of, saving grace on that aspect of it all, but it's digital form, which makes it super easy to access it from wherever you are. So you can access it from here, you can access it from being in Belize, you can access it from being in Greece, all these different other places. And so if you needed it, it's on your phone. You always typically have your phone on you, unless your phone gets stolen, then you're ish out of luck once again. So that's something to consider. If you have the paper, you may not get that stolen, but if you have your phone, which most people do want to steal your phone, not most people, but like you're more likely to get your phone stolen than this random piece of paper that people are going to randomly find through all the stuff, because you have a lot of stuff, because most of us do pack with the hell of shit in the bags. So I don't know. So again, I'm rambling. So I'm going to stop rambling. You'd think I did drugs, but no, I did not. I'm just rambling. I had coffee. Should never drink coffee before a podcast episode. Mental note to myself. The pros of having the vaccination passport and it being digitalized is you no longer need to use this piece of paper or the fear that you're going to lose it, damage it, or whatever, or have it stolen, and that it's easy to access. Now, the downside of the vaccination passport, and this is what I really want to kind of hone in on, is that the fact is there's no international standards on this. There's no even domestic standards. So right now, some states are actually implementing their own vaccination passports. So I know New York has their Elixir Pass that they're using for sporting events and other venues and stuff like that. And that's what it's annual right now. And I think that's IBM related. And so that's, they're doing their thing. I'll talk a little bit more about that one. And then I know that LA is in the process of doing something, and Louisiana has also done something. Then you have states like Florida and Texas being like, we are not going to make anyone show proof of vaccination. It's against our rights and our civil liberties, and woo woo woo. Proud to be an American. Anywho, but even internationally, each country has its own set of requirements, and so it's hard to have a vaccination passport that fits all, because there is no one size fits all. I know that there is organization of places coming together trying to create that, but until that happens, which it doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime soon, there's no standardization, and so it makes it really hard to have a one app fits all type of thing. And I can tell you right now, the U.S. government has already stated that they have no plans or desires to get up into this vaccination passport business or create a standardization. So note that with our government even saying that they have no plans to create a national standard, whatever it is, if there ever is one created, the U.S. may not be a part of it. They may have their own thing. So, that's one thing to consider, and that's a kind of a con. Another con, what we talked about slightly or started talking about, is privacy and security. All of these vaccination apps are not government apps. And they are all private companies. And so do you really want a private company having all your information, like your health information and access to all these different things? Think about it. You think about, Facebook's been hacked. I'm sure Twitter's been hacked. Like all these companies, and not saying that these are companies that are doing the apps, but, a lot of tech companies are getting hacked or are hacked. People find a way. People are clever these days. And so do you really want a third party company having your health information or having that information, and where are they storing it, and who else will have access to it, and does that lead to more access to more information? So that's where I do understand. That's where a lot of people who are on the more conservative come from, in that sense. Like the girl I was talking about before, good old Becky. Um, she was definitely talking about the privacy issues, and I get that. So I probably shouldn't shade her so much, because I do get what she's saying. And if privacy is something that's really important to you, and security of your information, you know, is it really safe having it on your phone and having it, digitalized? Some of them are putting it with your actual passport. So then you're giving, people access to your literal, like, US passport, whatever your country passport is, on top of your, vaccination information, your COVID test information. And so that's, I don't know. And the reason I say I don't know, because on top of this, you're seeing in New York where they're using it at, their, sporting events, venues. Then you start getting a situation, well, is it now opening the door for restaurants, hotels, and other airlines to also have this information? Because they're now saying, if you want to enter our hotel, or if you want to enter our restaurant, we need to have you show proof of your vaccination, and you have this thing on your phone. And so then, does that mean that they get this information? So there's a lot of, how much information do you want to give? And what is it, and how is it being secured? And, I'll talk about how some of them are securing, but, it's something to think about. That's all I'm saying, something to think about. The other thing to think about is the inequities. I think that's the right word I'm using. Basically, it ain't fair for everyone. That's what I'm trying to say in English terms. If you think about it, not all countries have full access to vaccinations. There's, it's only like, I think a lot of it was like the top, 10% of 90% of the countries that have vaccination were like the top 10, countries of like that were of like, high economics, whatever. I'm trying to say that. I don't want to probably into that right. But basically, there's a lot of poorer countries, or countries that don't have access to vaccination. So is that cutting off travel and international travel for them? And is that fair? Then you think about it also, a lot of Black Americans aren't about that vaccination life, and I don't fault them. You look at the Tuskegee Airmen and, the Tuskegee, experiment, all these different other things that we've done, that were done onto us, against us, without our knowledge. A lot of people in the African American community are a little bit leery of getting a vaccination, and I don't fault them for that. And, because of the history of, these type of things in our culture and used against us. And so if that's the case, if a lot of, African Americans are like, no, I'm not doing the vaccination, then again, are we cutting them off from international travel? Or if this even becomes, a requirement for domestic travel, are we cutting them off from domestic travel? Are we cutting off people who don't have smartphones? There's still people who have flip phones. There's some people who don't have phones. And are we, again, making this the haves and have-nots? Because if I don't have a flip phone, if, I don't live in a country where there's vaccinations is, easy to get to, am I cutting people off by creating this vaccination passport, and it's a must? And so that's one thing I do want to talk about, the social implications behind this. And then you have the ideal of the fact that, is it easy to fake? Like, how valid are these things? I mean, how like, if you look at some of these apps, it's like you're literally just uploading your information or taking a picture. Not all of them, but like some of them, it feels like that way. Can anyone falsify this information? And if they are falsifying this information, does that make me like, how do I know how many people are not falsifying it? And so it's like, is it fake? Is it real? All these different things. And, it's hard to validate. And something, again, it's hard to validate with the paper. So it's, it doesn't really change anything like that. But one thing I did want to talk about is, this false sense of safety. And if you traveled like to Africa, that, you most likely have had to get a yellow fever vaccination. And people think, oh, it's just like the yellow fever vaccination. And it's not. It's not the yellow fever vaccination, because you'll have a card that, says, I've been vaccinated, and it's easy to keep, keep it in your passport, or keep it whatever you do with your stuff. But the yellow fever vaccination has been around since the 30s. And the difference between that one is it's been around since the 30s, and there's one vaccination. Not whereas here we have 3 currently vaccinations. I'm sure there's going to be more coming along the way. But there's one vaccination that's been around since the 30s. So we kind of can say that works. And it's been working, and it's efficient, and it's effective. Whereas with the COVID vaccination, you people getting different vaccinations with different, effectiveness. And then some of them even needing booster shots, most likely. So are people really vaccinated? And like, how long does the COVID vaccination protect people? And how effective are the vaccinations against different variations? And those are all the unknowns that we don't know, but we're feeling safe because, oh, I got my COVID vaccination and I now have this COVID vaccination, passport. And I'm in this hotel that only allows people who have been vaccinated in the hotel, or I'm on this plane and you have to be vaccinated to be on this plane. And so that means, again, it goes back to let's be free and nilly willy, free for all, let's take off the mask. Let's not social distance. Let's lick everyone. But COVID's still real, y'all. COVID is still real. There's still new variants going on, and we just don't know. And so I just, I wanted to point these things out on kind of the cons and some of this stuff. But I also was like, okay, that being said, you don't care. So the cons don't outweigh the pros, and you're like, I still want to travel, and I'm vaccinated, and okay. And so what next? And so as I stated before, there are hella vaccination apps right now. There's I forgot, it was 5 or 6 of them, and there's other ones in the works. I know that Walmart I think it's talking about doing it. I think Walgreens is also thinking about creating one as well. And so there's already a bunch of apps, and there's more in development. So how do you know which app is the right app for you? So breaking down the apps, the first one we're talking about is the IATA Travel Pass. And the IATA Travel Pass is working primarily with the airlines, and it creates a digital version of your passport. So with that one, you can actually upload your passport, and I think you can upload your passport, and it creates a QR code with a link to your COVID information for the airline to use. So it's like you're checking into a plane. So it's like kind of you just like doot, and it says, oh, this person has been verified, and it lists. The other thing I love about this one is because I think this one has the most robust of all the apps is that it allows you to add your flight info and review travel requirements. It also will tell you the nearest, the closest COVID centers. So when you have to come back into the U.S., it has all the places that are, near wherever you're traveling to that offer COVID tests. And so that's great. So you're not looking around and you have all that in one spot. It's like a one-stop shop. And that's what I like about this one. You can also check in from home, and sharing your status with the airlines and border authorities. Currently, right now, this app is only on Apple. I'm Apple users, so it doesn't bother me. But for you Android users, it's not available yet. And it's not clear when it's going to be available for Android. That will being said, it just became available on Apple, and there's hella issues. I mean, the reviews are not so good. There's, the passport chip ID is not working. People are having issues logging in because they need some double authorization. People couldn't delete the flight information. Again, there's not on Android. The other huge thing to mention is it's still in trial. So there's a lot of places where you can't use it. So if it's not available for the airlines you're using or the destination you're going to, sorry, this is not for you. The one thing they did say that I did like was that they do have a paper-based alternative for people who don't want to have mobile phones. So I like the fact that they have that. But airlines who are utilizing this is Emirates, Etihad, what was it? Another one was Copa Airlines, which is where I travel when traveling into South America and stuff like that. Korean Air, Thai Air. What I did notice is that there were no airlines on here that were American Airlines, so something to keep in mind. But you never know. Again, a lot of this information I should have mentioned is constantly changing, and it's everly updating. So keep in mind that though as of this recording, these are the information, this is the current information for these type of things, but doesn't mean next week something's not going to change. So keep in mind that you still want to do your research because things are constantly evolving around the vaccination passport and the requirements for travels, and especially travel internationally. So the next one is Clear. Clear, if you've ever seen Clear, if you've ever been in the airport and you've seen those people who are zipping by you because someone's been escorting them through TSA, most likely they have Clear. And it's a little white stands, white kiosk stands that, will, they'll verify you through either your fingerprints or your eyes. And I have Clear. I love Clear. And so it's something great to have if you don't have global entry, or even global entry, that zips you through. But, Clear is also just as good. But so with using Clear, they have created what is called the Clear Health Pass. And so, they're using it in Hawaii. I know they've been talking about adding temperature checks, which is great. Adding, your vaccine records, surveys like, have you been around someone that's had COVID? Like, are you feeling sick and all these different things? And even they're actually partnering with, I believe, Walmart and Sam's Club. So if you got your vaccination there, you are now have access to Clear. So that's great. And this is also free, I believe. I think that's free. I know that the IATA is free. I think Clear Health Pass is also free, but don't quote me on that. I think I'm right, but don't quote me completely on that one. But so Clear is something to consider as an option. The other one I wanted to mention, we kind of talked about it a little bit before, is the Elixir Pass, and that is the one that New York is currently using. And that one uses a QR code or on an app, or you can actually print it out. So again, this has a printable option, which I like that it has a printable option for those who, don't have a, smartphone, or smartphone's not working or whatever, for whatever reason. But the downside behind this Elixir Pass is it's not for travel. So if you're trying to travel, it's not the pass for you. But if you live in New York, or you're going to one of the, sporting events or whatever it's used for, keep in mind that this is what they're using there. So you may have to use it if you live in New York. It also doesn't share like underlying medical information or personal information, nor does it store the information on the app. So, that's one thing that I like about this one as well. Next one is the Common Pass. I don't know how they got the name. Well, I think it's Common Foundation, but like a Common Project. But I'm like, Common? Okay, interesting name, but we'll rock with it. The Common Pass was developed by a Swiss based public interest foundation called the Common Project. And it's in conjunction with the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum. So, there's some validity behind this one. It is, it allows you to store your COVID test and your vaccination, and the app generates like a yes or no. And then it gives you a QR code, once the person meets all the entry criteria. And several airlines have been a part of this, partnering with this. And so I think United Airlines, JetBlue, on top of airlines, you have places like Aruba, Hawaii. Also, Clear is using this as well. So I don't really know how Clear has two different things, but I know Clear is a partner of them. And so, that's something to consider as another option. And then another one, if we're talking about another like airline specific one, United Airlines has their own. So the United Airlines has what they're calling United Travel Ready Center. And it's only unique to United Airlines. You upload your test and your vaccination records. So it does test and vaccination records. And then what will happen is a United Airline employee will look at your stuff prior to you traveling and verify that it's real. And then, you can check in before, and so it's kind of cool. And also you're able to book tests directly through the app. So, if you're flying United, this may be the way to go because, you can upload your test and your vaccination records, and it will help you also find, to get your test, your COVID test for coming back in the country directly through them. So it's easy, bada boom, bada bang, but it's only if you're flying United. The next one we're going to talk about is Verifly. Verify, I don't know. Verify is COVID test only, so there's no vaccination record. So if you're vaccinated, this is kind of isn't for you because it's really not going to prove that you have vaccination because they don't have. That's not what they do. They're only about COVID tests. And this one was adopted by American Airlines and British Airways and some other places, other airlines. They do offer travel requirements for destinations, kind of like IATA travel, which is good. And this one, you have to upload a selfie, complete the, checklist of requirements, and then it will give you like a QR code for a kiosk or for you to give to the staff, like when you're checking in. And the last one I want to talk about is European Pacific specific, but it's something to note because I do think that they are kind of adding it into where other people from non-European countries can kind of be a part of it, but this is still new. So the EU has created the EU Digital Green Certificate. And this is where, what they're saying right now is that you can submit your vaccination documents from your home country as proof or, be issued a digital green certificate. But like nothing's set completely. And so this is something that is in the works, and so it's something that the European countries are doing. So that's something to note as well. So that's everything in terms of all of the different apps. And as you know, I went through a lot. And again, there's probably more, and not probably, there are more apps in development. And so I encourage you to make sure you do your research to look what app does what destinations, because not all apps go to are for each destination. So even though you may have an app that may be good for going to, I don't know, Greece. I don't know why Greece is in my mind because I want to go to Greece. I want to go to Greece. Like this time a couple years ago, I was in Greece. So I want to be in Greece. So going to Greece, not all of the apps will work for that country. So keep in mind that some of these apps are not for every country, not for every destination, and all these different things. So you need to really look what the app has. Is the app for, does it record your vaccination and your test? Does it give you information about what your travel requirements are? Does the app store your information on the phone? Like some of them do store the information only on the phone, so it's not stored in a central database, or it's stored in a central database. Do I trust the company who is doing this? I mean, there's so many different companies who are involved in all these different things, and so there's so many things to think about. But okay, we've talked about the pros and cons of getting the vaccination passport. We talked about, the travel requirements with the CDC being lax and the fact that people are just ready to travel. So if you're ready to travel and you've been vaccinated, your probably next question is like, where can I go? Where can I go as a vaccinated person? So I'm going to give you a quick list of some places you can go as a vaccinated person. So, and note that this is always changing. So I say that this is a list today. It may not be the list tomorrow. All right. So we talked about Greece because I want to go to Greece. Greece is on the list with no travel restrictions, no COVID tests needed, no quarantine of any sort, no curfews. It's just free nilly. So yeah, Greece is on the list. Iceland. Iceland is awesome because it also has no curfews or restrictions once you're in the country. So you can go to the Blue Lagoon, you can go to Golden Circle, and all the other great places in Iceland. Just make sure to bring a jacket. Belize is on the list as well. And I think, Belize is on the list, and there's no restrictions, no tests. Again, it's one. So that's the other thing is, a lot of them expect you to be what is deemed fully vaccinated. And I should have prefaced this before. Again, fully vaccinated means that you are traveling 2 weeks after your last dose of 2 weeks after your last dose of the vaccination. That's the best way to say that. On the list, Thailand, which is great. Maldives is on the list. If you want to get like a real, luxury travel on, get that bungalow above water feel, those awesome Instagram pictures. Maldives is on the list. The Bahamas is on the list. Barbados, Croatia, the French Polynesian, which is like Marais Island, Tahiti, Bora Bora, places like that. That's all part of the French Polynesia. There's some caveats there, so I wanted to talk about that. So if you are vaccinated, you do get to bypass the 10-day quarantine, but you still need to get a negative COVID test before getting to the country. You have to submit an antigen test upon arrival, and then you have to take a self-administered PCR test on day 4 of your trip. So not a lot, but there still are hoops you need to travel through. There's no curfews and stuff like that, but that's something to consider. Montenegro in Africa. Oh my God, beautiful, 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 beautiful location. But they do have curfews and restaurants are still limited, so keep that in mind. As well as the Seychelles, gorgeous place in Africa. If you love being on the beach, it is a beautiful place to go. So many options, but there's curfews from 10 to 4 p.m. But are you really going to be out that late in Seychelles? Probably not. So it's probably okay. Going down to, South America and Central America, you have, we'll start with Granada first. Granada has less restrictions than unvaccinated people, but they still have restrictions. So one of the restrictions is you have to there's a 48-hour quarantine if you've been vaccinated. You still have to take a COVID test, either fill out some pure safe travel authorization form. So you still have to quarantine. So this was only one that I saw that you actually had to actual quarantine. So keep that in mind. Then you have Ecuador, which they have the Galapagos Islands, and Guatemala. No restrictions, no COVID tests prior to going, and it's all gravy. So those are the countries that you can go to. And so we've talked about all these different things, and I just want to give you key takeaways, and when you're thinking about traveling in this time frame, note that things are changing constantly. We talked about this, and I say this over and over again, but things are constantly changing. But one thing that's not changing is you're going to need to have proof that you've been either vaccinated or that you have taken a COVID test to travel to any country. So that's not going to wait anytime soon. And that is kind of our new travel norm. That is the new travel norm right now, that you're going to have to show proof one way or another. And so the vaccination passport is a great way to show that you have proof from a legally documented, lab or whatever. It's not clear how the verification process is going to work. It's still not clear if, all these apps are, going to be the right one for you, or is it, going to work for different countries? And something to consider is, maybe it is just better to have the paper vaccination card, which works. You don't have to worry about it not, one app not working in one place versus another place, because your paper vaccination will always work. So maybe you don't need to go all digital, and maybe it's okay to go old school still for a while and just have the card. So something to keep in mind. But also, the other thing I wanted to say is that travel will, whether you have been vaccinated or not, COVID's still real. COVID's still real. So, keep in mind that you need to still take precautions and not have this mentality. Again, this is my opinion. I'm going to say this again. This is my opinion. Don't have this mentality that, life is good. I can take off everything. I'm completely safe, because it's just not clear. The CDC might say something now and be like, oops, our bad. We didn't really mean that. Or, science is now saying, psych, you really do need to be wearing masks. And it's really, 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 really not recommended to travel. Because they're already saying it's not recommended to travel. Now they may say it's really, really, really not recommended for travel. So take in your own research, figure out what's right for you. At the end of the day, again, what is right for you? Traveling right now may be good for you. Traveling in a couple of months may be better for you. Getting a vaccination passport may be good for you. Having the white piece of paper might be good for you. Whatever you do what's right for you. This is just a way to give you information about what is available and let you know that there are options. What are the options? What are the pros and cons of some of these options? So you can make the best decision for you. Because I know travel is amazing. When done right, travel can just, it can lift your soul. I mean, like, we just right now just need time. Like, I need a beach. I don't know about you, but I need a beach so freaking bad. But I also want to live, and I also want to be responsible about things, and also listening to some of these things about travel, vaccination passports. I think about the inequities of, different countries and people who aren't willing to get the vaccine, and what does that mean for them? And so there's all these different things that come into play. And so just think about it. And that's what I got for you today. So I hope you got something out of this. If you have friends who love to travel, please share this share this podcast with them, and make sure that they are aware of, what's going on, because, we all need to be informed. So thank you for being here, and I look forward to talking to you next week. Have a good day, and I'm out of here. Ciao. Thanks for joining us this week on the Hello Well with Danielle show. Make sure to visit our website, hellowellwithdanielle.com, where you can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music and never miss an episode. Also, you can follow us on social media at Hello Well with Danielle on Facebook and Instagram, and Hello Well Danny on Twitter. And if you like hella love the show and got some good nuggets out of it, know that I'm not too proud to ask for you to please leave a rating or review on iTunes so that we can continue to expand our reach and help other women of color. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you next week. Ciao.